We'll call to order the April 30th special meeting of the District 99 Board of Education. Call the roll, please.
Bill White.
Here.
Julia Beckman.
Here.
Deb Boyle.
Here.
Mike Davenport.
Here.
Nancy Kupka.
Here.
Keith Mattoon.
Here.
Terry Pavasich.
Here.
Okay, at this time, we'll stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for the benefit of those who may someday watch the videotape, this is a special meeting to approve a couple of bids and another discussion. I believe because we are voting, we are required to have a reception of visitors first. Brian, do you want to say anything to us before we get going? Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, we'll close the reception of visitors. We'll move to item 3 on the agenda, approval of bids for the master site plan. Item 3A, master site plan synthetic surface. Dr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. White. I'm going to have Mr. Schock talk about these bids and answer the board's questions about them.
Thank you.
Actually, there are two different presentations.
Correct. This first one is purchase and installation of a synthetic multi-purpose field at North High School on the west parcel in lieu of the grass field that was initially discussed. We've talked at some length over the past few months about our option here. And we know because of the stormwater system difference between a grass field and a synthetic field and the offsets that there's not much cost difference between one and the other. So the multi-purpose synthetic field offers so much more value in the fact that it can be used in bad weather and immediately after bad weather, low maintenance, those sort of things. So we were ready to go out to public bid, and we found a state purchasing network. This one is Texas, where the low bidder was the same manufacturer that installed our synthetic fields last year. And this would be the same type of field. The only difference would be it's a shorter turf synthetic material because soccer and softball typically goes with a shorter turf for ball play. The good thing, the great thing about a cooperative purchase is the time saved. We don't have to go out to bid and go through that process. We don't have to pay for those specifications and drawings and all the time spent. We know we're getting the lowest price, and because it's sped up, then we can get it installed earlier, and we're hoping to have this field ready this fall. Not guaranteed, but we think it'll happen. The other good part is that it's $20,000 less than what we expected to pay for the field had we gone through the bid process, simply because it's a nationwide low bid. So we would recommend to the Board of Education to use the cooperative purchasing network proposal for the lowest bid to field turf for a field at North High School.
Okay, before asking for a motion, I will ask if anybody has factual questions for Marty or other members of the administration. Hearing none, the chair will invite a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Member Pavasich moves the approval of the 2012 synthetic field bid recommendation as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Davenport seconds. Call the vote, please.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye, that motion passes. The bid recommendation has been approved. Item 3B on the agenda, Master Site Plan Phase 2. These are more bids. Dr. McDonald, will Marty Scheck be talking to us again about this?
He will, and it's a series of, or a number of bids. One, I think, is bid for South, and the remainder are for North High.
Several months ago, we brought to you bid package 1 for South High School for Tier 1 Phase 2 work in the master site plan, and all of those prime bids were awarded, but we pulled one, the electrical bid. There was a mistake by several contractors, and we thought it would be better off if we rebid it. And in fact, the prices came a little bit better the second time around. So one of the 12 bids is a rebid of South High School. That completes all of the contracts we need to perform the work at South High School. North High School, this is the first bid package. There is one more bid package to come, and that will come in June to finish off this work. That piece is all about the synthetic, the changes to the rest of the west property because of the synthetic field, and the stormwater management changes. We've seen the county approve the stormwater ordinance changes, and we expect the village to do so. We'll change our documents a little bit, save all that money, speed things up. So that's the second piece that we'll bring back in June. This piece is everything except that west field. So it's the east parking lot renovation, the west parking lot renovation, Prince Street renovation, and the outside stadium washrooms, and then all of the underground utilities that go with that. We had 32 bids for these. I think there's 11 trades, and we were amazed is the right word, I think, for the costs that came in the proposals. They were lower. We expected low numbers this time. The economy is still affecting the contractors, but they came in so low that we're still doing some research to make sure everybody's got everything in, but we feel real confident at this point. We know all the contractors but one. Competition was all very tight this time, telling us that the contractors cut all their margins about the same. So we didn't see the spread we'll normally see on high and lows. And that gives us some confidence that those numbers are correct. So we would recommend, these are all except one was a low bidder. There was one low bidder that we had to reject, but the others are all low acceptable bidders, and we'd recommend approval of these contractors and know that there's one more bid package coming in June.
Okay, once again, before moving on to a motion, does anybody have factual questions for Marty or any other members of the administration? Hearing none, what's
I
our...
have one.
Okay, go ahead, yes. go ahead.
I was just, with Happy's Landscaping, that landscaping includes, like, what, everything? Borders around everything?
No,
or-
their name is landscaping, but they're really an excavator and
Oh, got it.
underground utility.
Got it.
And they were
I know it said
contract-
excavation, and I
Right.
wondered about that.
Landscaping is one of the bids that will be in the final package. We haven't even designed the
Got it.
landscaping yet.
So this is really just digging up and,
Digging a hole and filling it back in with suitable soils.
could I ask another
Absolutely,
question?
yes.
Will you be installing berms again to keep, or is that not possible with the way the land is configured, so that we don't have to haul it all away?
The village has restrictions on berms in landscaping for security purposes.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
We will where we can. We haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
We haven't even started the landscaping plan. Please
I just
understand
wondered.
that for permitting purposes on these bids, there is minimal landscaping.
I see.
But it's going to, in the June bid, we'll supplement that extensively. So just for permitting purposes, we had to provide some landscaping, but it's going to be
Just-
much more than that.
Okay,
Other questions?
thank you.
The future landscaping, is that including the input from the community?
Yes,
That,
we're just starting the process of selecting. We've got some staff that would like to be included in that design committee of neighbors. So we're preparing to go to get names and suggestions, volunteers from the neighborhood. We'll finish organizing our design team, and within a few weeks, we'll be hard at work designing that for the June bid.
Good, very good.
Other questions? Okay.
Good work.
The chair would invite a motion, Master Site Plan Phase 2 bid awards.
I will move that.
Okay, Member Beckman moves that the bid packages be accepted and approved. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead,
Nancy got
Nancy.
there first.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Member Kupka seconds. Any discussion? Okay, call the vote, please.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka. Aye. Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Deb Boyle. Aye. Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye, that bid package has been approved. The motion carries. Keep moving forward. That's good, it's good news. The next item on our agenda, item 4, board discussion regarding board retreat self-evaluation. Dr. McDonald, you have some information for us?
Yes, I do.
Make one more for you, Joanne. But I'll-
Actually, I think I have mine from before. if you want.
Okay.
Thanks.
If it's the same, I think it's the same.
Thinking,
Not a problem. I know where you live.
Mr. Staley and Mr. Schock have other responsibilities and probably will not be
No.
involved in the self-evaluation retreat, so they're going to take their leave.
Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you recall from the previous meeting, I think it was the previous business meeting, when the board discussed the concept of the self-evaluation. We ended the discussion by deciding that Terry, Bill, and I would meet and discuss the parameters of a self-evaluation retreat, consider the facilitators or consider who might facilitate and what sort of instruction that we would give the facilitator, and try to iron out some of these details. And what you have in front of you is basically the notes from that meeting, and I'd like to go over those quickly. First, in terms of the purposes of the retreat, our thinking purpose was to promote the growth and development of the Board of Education as a group, and to improve the board structures for communication among the board, both in and outside of meetings. We thought those would be desirable outcomes of an evaluation retreat. In terms of what to avoid, the intent was to avoid personal attacks or settle lingering or ongoing personal differences. We thought there were other venues to do that can be done in person, one-to-one, instead of using this vehicle for that purpose. We were in agreement that a well-facilitated self-evaluation has the potential to improve the board's functioning. And we had quite a long discussion about facilitation because, and frankly, it was my concern that poorly facilitated self-evaluation will create more issues than not having one at all. And we have in this room, many of us have had some experiences such as that. Without going into that further, it's clear that this is clearly that in order for us to achieve our purposes, we have to have a well-facilitated
Yes.
session. And we talked a lot about that. There are, heretofore in the discussion, there have been two facilitators mentioned. Dr. Attia has worked with the board before, primarily on superintendent's evaluation and district goals. And Barbara Tony, who is IASB field staff member, whose responsibility now includes facilitating these sorts of workshops. And of course, there are differences of opinion about who the best person would be, and we discussed this at length. Each has strengths and weaknesses. But one of the issues with Mrs. Tony was that she has not done this before, at least has done it with us, hasn't been in that position, I believe, less than a year with the IASB, and ergo, it would be worthwhile to contact some of the places that she has worked with and find out how successful that was. And I did contact 3 superintendent colleagues, one in Glen Ellen, one at Fenton, and one in Queen Bee. I don't know where that is, but
North.
that's an interesting name.
Glendale Heights.
Queen
Yeah,
Bee Elementary District.
I guess she is a queen bee, right?
I wouldn't go there, Mrs. Pavasich. I'm still on good terms with her. I don't want to go there.
I've always wondered what that
But
name meant.
they, in those conversations, and I didn't do this by email, it was by telephone. The theme was pretty similar. They had the school board had a previously bad or set of bad experiences with a previous facilitator, to the point where the school board really did not want to have a self-evaluation. Mrs. Tony was very effective in the process, a much stronger individual than the previous individual who did this, and that had very clear direction, and if necessary, the board and the board president and the superintendent also offered direction. And Mrs. Tony was very skilled at running the meeting and getting a acceptable result out of the process. And there was a universal, basically, comment from those three persons, and they're all in very different places, and I know all of them through different associations, and I find them all to be credible. I also finally was able to contact Dr. Attia. He had been out of state doing a project, and I was finally able to contact him last week. And I explained that what we were working on, and also mentioned that we were considering Mrs. Tony as one of the candidates, and Dr. Attia indicated that he and Mrs. Tony have worked together in the past, and he has high regard for her. And further indicated that he would call her if it was okay with me and ask if they could do this together. And I told Dr. Attia that in the past when I had made this request to the IASB person, and I was told flatly, no, he's not going to do that. And so that's why I didn't consider it in the first place. And he said, well, I know Barbara Tony well enough, and I worked with her before, so if that's something that's improper, according to the School Board Association, she will tell me that, and then we won't have the discussion, and, that we'll go from there, which person you'd rather have. But I got a call from Bill late on Friday afternoon indicating that he had spoken with Mrs. Tony, and she would be delighted to work with him, do this together. So that's a dynamic that we really hadn't considered.
It's kind of cool.
Past. When we met on the 20th, Bill Terry and I were thinking that perhaps we could have the facilitators come and meet with the board in closed session, and basically we could interview the facilitators prior to choosing one. And we were going to ask the questions that you have on your memo here. Describe the process you'll use in facilitating a board self-retreat. How you promote team building through the process. How you discourage managed personal attacks through the process. How you improve the board's meeting processes so that each board member is valued, should be valued, and believes his or her voice is heard in the board's work, and what will your follow-up look like? So we had sort of planned that as a set of interview questions. But at the time we developed these, it wasn't clear that Dr. T and Mrs. Tony would or could work together. So we're sort of at the board's pleasure at this point how to proceed.
I wonder if I could add something about Mrs. Tony that was not true of the prior person. She was a board president for many years.
Right.
Up in an elementary district, I think, near West Chicago, I think District 33. The former person had not ever been a board member.
Right.
I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but she's really, and she was involved with SASSET for years. She and I followed each other as presidents of LEND, as co-chairs of LEND. Mm-hmm. I know she's had a lot of experience with board members, and I think that's the difference, and I think it would be, I think that would really be very valuable. It gives her a better perspective on how boards work. And while she's maybe only been in this position for a year, she's been with the IASB for several years since she retired.
I think that's correct.
From the board. She was with another district. So she's actually been doing these for a really long time. I was so glad to hear the positive recommendations of her, but I'm not surprised. To my mind, I think it's a great combination to have them work together. I think we can come out with some very constructive results. I like the parameters that the three of you set. I think they make a lot of sense, and I think she will definitely be on board. I know Dr. Attia would be, I think Barb Tony would be as well, that it's a totally positive arrangement. And as I mentioned at our last meeting, we could definitely work on board goals, which we haven't done yet, and that will fit with our district goal conversation we're going to have later. So to my mind, I think having the two of them come would be a really great way to do it, and it will keep things very positive. I know that's been a concern for us. I understand that. Nobody wants to get into, all of the negatives. We want to move forward. So, to my mind, I think it's a great arrangement.
Any contrary opinion to that perspective?
I don't really have a contrary opinion, I just have a question. Can we afford both?
I was thinking the same thing, cost.
Well, Mrs. Tony's fees are offset by we would pay a fee, but
It's minimal, right?
it's not substantial, and Dr. T has always been very generous
Okay.
in working with us. I don't know exactly how much they would charge us, and I would, that would all have to be worked out. But, I'm sure we're not talking about $5,000 or something like that.
Okay,
It may be between $500 and $1,000.
Okay.
But and I believe, again, this is part of, for Mrs. Tony's services, this is part of what we get from being part of the School Board Association.
Our dues, so.
I think we pay, part of what we pay extra is the work that she has to do outside to facilitate, because there will be, in these processes, there will, I'm sure each of you will receive some kind of questionnaire or survey or something to fill out beforehand, and her role responsibility, or their collective one, would be to compile that and take some initial findings from it. That's typically how that would work. But it is a,
Just one.
yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have a $100 credit with the IASB. Right, Bill, you gave me that certificate from something.
Oh,
It was a
that's
$100 credit,
Oh, yeah.
which I have on my
Forgot
desk.
about
I
Burning
hung
a
on to
hole
it,
in
so
our pocket.
There we go.
Good memory,
I think Bill
Joanne.
Attia, given his national reputation, he could charge $5,000 a day, but he has never charged us.
Never charged us that, no.
Anywhere. He's always been very gracious. And I think at this point in his life, he does what he wants to do. If he likes to do it, if he likes the people he works with, he'll do it. If he doesn't care to do
That
it.
nice.
But I can't comment exactly how much it would cost, but I don't think it's an issue, cost would not be my concern at this point, knowing those two individuals and who they represent.
We do have a budgeted amount of things that are for
Yes, we
our
do.
use.
For board development.
Yeah, yeah, so,
And we typically don't spend it because there are other boards that go to the national conference, or they go to whatever, or they, but we typically do not spend the money allocated for board development.
Well, I think the efficiencies from a well-run meeting will clearly outweigh what would be a relatively modest cost in this situation. Are there other objections to this idea? Because I agree with Mrs. Beckman's approach that both is probably the best way to go. Any contrary opinion? Sounds like general consensus that if we're going to have if we're going to do work evaluation, having these two individuals do it. I would comment that the decision whether open and closed could be made the morning of the meeting, because there'd be a motion.
Probably could, right?
And my understanding is that legally, Mrs. Tony, because Mrs. Tony will be there, we have the option of going into closed session.
And then, would this mean that we don't need to have them come and interview with us on the 7th? Is that
No.
what this discussion's about? Yeah.
We were done.
So you're saying there's not going to be an interview?
Right.
I would be in favor of having an interview first and then moving forward. Because I think at that point, then we can ask them some questions personally, kind of have a back and forth, a dialogue, and then at that time, we can decide whether we can move forward. That would be my position on that issue.
I thought we were past that. I thought we'd
Yes.
already.
Not according to the minutes. The minutes never said we will absolutely do. We will look at facilitators and then make that decision at that point in time.
Well, I beg to
Other
differ.
opinions
but-
about that? About just going ahead with these two versus interviewing them?
yeah,
I could also offer is, Dr. Tia indicated that, perhaps Bill, as the board president, and I would call he and Dr. and Mrs. Tony sometime during the week, and basically view the wishes of the board with her at that point.
There's that. That's a time saver.
Possibility.
Is that,
It's a possibility, absolutely, it's a possibility.
I don't know either of these people, other than the one or two times I've met Dr. Attia. I think it's difficult to interview people as facilitators because it's really hard to judge a person's ability in an interview situation. I think getting references, as you've already done, is very helpful. So I, for one, would not feel that I needed to interview them.
Other perspectives? Anybody else?
I'd say that I share your feelings on this. However, I think it's important that going into it, that we're all comfortable with it. And so I wouldn't object to doing as Member Mattoon has suggested.
That's a very good point, because if any board member is not comfortable with the process, that will undermine the ability to be successful with it.
Right.
I have no objection to either way, to having them come May 7th. I just was asking.
If they can, that's another
they can,
question, too. Or they could come a different day, too.
And we're looking at dates when they're available. I would guess we're looking at June or July.
I don't know.
Okay.
We've crossed that bridge yet.
I would think it needs to be this summer.
I think we need to get dates going too while we're doing this, because those
Yeah,
months fill up fast, even though they are summertime.
yeah, they do. Just a suggestion.
Well, we could find, Dr. McDonald, we could find out this week if either or both are available to meet with us briefly next week.
Yes.
And if not, what day they would be available. And then next Monday, we can come back with dates that they're available too. Because I don't know what dates are available, so we can't talk about dates tonight.
I realize that.
Right.
So we need to get that information from them.
So maybe we'll find out, because I guess if they can come, I have no problem with them coming. I mean,
Yeah.
On May 7th?
yeah,
Right.
if they can, I mean, it's short notice, I don't know if they can or not. We'll find out. Or find out when they can come, so all of us can meet them ahead of time if that's an issue where we want to be more comfortable with it.
Okay.
You think we're at a reasonable point of consensus for this evening? Knowing that we're not final yet, but that we're,
I think so.
I think that's a good idea, because, there are some people who might not know. I'm very comfortable with Dr. Tay. I don't know, Barbara Tony
I've
yet.
never met her either, so I don't know.
Right, but I think it is important that everybody feels comfortable going in, and if there are some members who would just at least like to meet him before going in, I think, and, talk
Absolutely,
about
sure.
the process, then I think I would support that.
Okay, we'll find out if they're available.
Okay, very well.
And we'll move forward.
I think it would be a good idea for board members to identify, and I presume we could also do this at night, but sometimes in the summer, I would also remind the board that
And calendars.
superintendent's evaluation has to be done in the summer, which is basically a 4-hour commitment. And typically, this would be a 4-hour self-evaluation retreat. We're talking about a Saturday morning or a
Or an evening.
6 to 9 or 5:30 to 10, whatever we can. That's the kind of framework we're talking for these processes.
So it sounds like we'll learn what we can this upcoming week and report back next Monday. If they can come, we'll include that on the agenda.
Okay.
If they can't, they'll come on a future day.
Okay, very well.
That's my notes, and then we'll know more about possible scheduling dates for the summer next Monday.
So would you like us to check our calendars as well?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Maybe as part of Friday's mailing, you can tell us if they give us what dates are available.
Okay.
If they can tell us what
Place to
dates.
start.
Because, I got the summer. What to do. Okay, now, Dr. McDonald, my recollection from our conversation on Friday is that we are not going to be doing the closed session this evening?
That's correct.
Okay, second reception of visitors. Brian, did you just think of something you want to say? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, we go past the second reception of visitors, no closed session. Any other business? The chair invites a motion to adjourn.
I'm in shock. So moved.
Second.
Member Beckman moves, Member Kupka seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Meeting adjourned.